Hey, here we are to talk about the Space 1975 Kickstarter project. And joining me today is one of the authors on the project, Ron Collins. Hi, Ron. How you doing?
Hey Bob, how's it going? Having a great day out here in Arizona.
Oh, great, great.
It's only like 105 degrees or something like that, and it's what 5:20. So
So just a typical day in Tucson, in the Tucson area.
just another day of frying our brains out. What the heck?
Well, that'll put you in the perfect frame of mind to write your story for this anthology, Space
Exactly.
1975.
Exactly. That's why you had to hit me right at this time of year, because we're just in this massive string of 100-degree days. So
That's right. I get you at your peak. Well,
if there is one.
Well, I'm so glad that you were able to be a part of the author team for this project. You came to mind right away when I was thinking of people to bring into this project, because you have just the right sensibility, the right quirky sensibility to write something that has to do with a space opera and the 1970s. And you might have some personal knowledge of the 70s, perhaps, or maybe you've just heard second or third hand from somebody you know. Do you have any knowledge?
No, I actually was a bona fide living, breathing human being in the 70s, and
Okay.
and so as soon as you talked about that, first off, thank you so much. I appreciate your comment on that. But as soon as you started talking about space opera in the 1970s, my brain started going, oh, yes, this is going to be fun. So
Yeah, I had the idea one night, and it just came to me, and of course, you know, there was the old show in the 70s called Space 1999,
it's
and
true.
this has really nothing to do with that, but the title sort of sparked that idea, Space 1975. And I was thinking, let's do maybe anthologies based on different decades that sort of have some of the sensibilities and cultural significance and thematic elements and historical elements.
Oh yeah, that would be really fantastic. I mean, you know, that's one of the first things that hit my brain as you were, you know, put this theme together is, oh my gosh, that if you sit down and think about the cultural significance of a decade, right, of a time period, and then just shift that cultural significance even 5 and 7 and 8 years, you just start to see so many different things, right? And space opera has this magical quality of itself to have a, you know, it has its own tropes and its own feel and its own sense of size. But when you overlay that sense of size in with thinking about things that are going on in the 70s, you come up with very different, or I do anyway, I come up with very different feelings than I do if I overlay it with the 90s, right? And so the differences in the way you think about how stories would play out, that you're trying to capture essences, it's a really interesting idea. I love that idea. So
Yeah, I just thought it sounded like a lot of fun, you know, and there are so many ways you can take it without just going into total cheese. So there was some of that to the 70s, at least in the realm of cinema, science fiction cinema. But the 70s also gave us some incredible space opera films. You know, Star Wars came from 77, and there's some really.
Oh yeah, I mean the whole. If you think of, like I said, move from the 60s to the 70s to the 80s, right? The 60s was this big cultural upheaval with lots of. I mean, it feels a lot like what's going on today, right? In general public, right? The 80s were this great big madcap, gimme, gimme, gimme world, right? The 70s were this great big place where it's like the world is catching a great big deep breath, and it had Star Wars, it had Alien, it had George Lucas was doing all sorts of interesting things even before then, right? The very first thing that I was thinking of when you were talking about movies, because I was watching, I think it was you and Kat. You did a great video with Kat Rambo, which being able to write with Kat Rambo is going to be really cool.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. I was all on board with the idea, and then you started laying out the people who are going to be writing on this thing, and I went, oh, I would do that no matter what. I get that. One of I think our shared compatriots who recently passed, Mike Resnick,
Yes.
made some comment to me back when I was a very baby writer, back in the 80s when I was a baby writer. That one of the great things about being a writer was that you get to hobnob with so many really cool people. And so when you laid out some of the folks, I was like, yeah, I got to collect those names too.
Yeah, we have a pretty good lineup, and Mike Resnick did come to mind when I was first thinking about this. I was like, I wish I could.
Oh, he would be.
Bring him in. Man, he'd just nail it.
I'd read the heck out of that.
Can't even expect. But we've got we've got Dean Wesley Smith, and Annie Reed, who's another wonderful writer in so many ways, and oh my God, who else? Jason Onspa and Nick Cole of the Galaxy's Edge novel,
right.
And
Scott Zickery and Peter David and the names that you start rolling out there is going to be really fun.
It's a good group.
Because I've been on some of the some table of contents with several of these writers, and I always enjoy them. But this is going to get me a few extra names, like I say, to pump up my brain, pump up my ego, right?
Well, you certainly don't need that because you've had quite a career in writing science fiction and writing other fiction as well. But specifically talking about the sci-fi alone, you wrote the Stealing the Sun novels, right?
Yeah.
Which have done pretty great.
Oh, they've been doing quite well.
Yeah. How many of those are there?
There are soon to be 7.
Almost did a spit take. Wow, I didn't know there were that many already.
There are 6 right now, and actually, I'm a little later than I want to be on book 7, which would theoretically be the end. But if my past history, proves out, there will be a book 8. I'll just put it that way, right?
Well, that's great for fans of those books. That's wonderful news.
Yeah, I hope so. And there do seem to be a few of them, so I'm happy with that. I've been a little bit stuck in place right now, and then this whole COVID world has not really necessarily helped me out in that process.
Yeah,
but they will be coming out here fairly soon. Hopefully, probably late this year. Late. My tongue can't work.
Temperature days.
Late this year, early next. But yeah, and I've got a story coming out in analog again pretty soon. That'll be, I think, the 20th or so.
Holy smokes, I didn't know there had been that many.
I hadn't either until I actually looked it up. Somebody made some comment that I was, wow, that's interesting.
That's wonderful. And you've been published in Asimov's as well, right? Asimov's science fiction magazine.
Several anthologies and other magazines and so forth. It's been a fun life, you know.
Yeah.
A fun creative world. And I've gotten to be in some of the same anthologies as this Jeschonek guy.
Yeah, I always love seeing your name there. Yeah,
which is truly a highlight. I am a huge Bob Jeschonek fan. So
well, thank you, and the feeling is mutual. I'm always excited when I see that one of your stories is in that same TOC, the same table of contents, and I get to read it. And that's what I look forward to the most, is reading your work and the work of others who are also present, who are, you know, part of our world of writing and creativity. And I'm glad you're aboard. But
yeah, I'm really groovy, really far out, all the 70s stuff, you know.
Well, you've gotten a little bit of a change here, and you've become, I guess you're getting in the spirit of Space 1975. You changed your hair. You went with more of a 1970s cut. Definitely, Ron.
There you go. I just need to do the John Denver bleaching and and maybe I can put out some music on it the same way. I don't think it'll sell nearly as well as John Denver's did, but what the heck?
It works, and it's.
I can do the far out groovy part with it. It's Denver in space.
Oh, the ideas are starting to tick into place already. I can tell.
Oh yeah, I've got all sorts of ideas. I've got a cousin who I often bounce silly things back and forth on Facebook, and he saw one of the advertisements on the Kickstarter, which is going quite well, it seems.
Yeah.
and said, hey, clue me in on this, what's up? And I said, I'm getting ready to, assuming this funds, I'm going to get to write a space opera in the 70s. I'm counting on you to give me some ideas. And he kicked back 3 or 4 things. So now I'm actually baiting a couple other people who have said, hey, you could do this. I'm thinking about actually like collecting all those ideas, putting them on a piece of paper, and then just as I'm chugging along, incorporate one of them, you know, as I go.
That's a great idea.
Those are fun.
Tap into those resources.
Yeah, all these people who lived through the 70s are saying, you need to do this. I lived through the 70s too, by gosh, I can do what I want.
It's not quite like the 60s where, as Robin Williams once said, if you lived through the 60s, if you say you remember the 60s, then you weren't there. The 70s,
there you go.
have a little bit more recollection, and there's a little bit more available memory and ideas.
Yeah, and admittedly, I was young enough in the 70s that I should be able to remember it. So
yeah.
No matter what.
Well, it's a fun project, and as you mentioned earlier, we're doing pretty well with we're doing great with our backers. We've gotten to the 54% funded level. So you know, we're just looking for more people to jump on board and help us to make this a reality. And you know, the sooner the better to meet the funding goal. I can't wait till we hit that big 100%, and we can all, you know, cheer, and we'll have some special stuff happening then, I'm sure, and hopefully kick through some of those stretch goals, I hope, as well.
There you go. So we get to sit down and do the actual writing.
Yeah, well, I'm excited about that, but I'm really, honest to God, I'm really excited about reading everybody's stories. I mean, I just can't wait to see what everybody does with this theme. And as you know, we were saying earlier, I can't wait to see what you do with it as well. I know it's going to be original and fun, and all science fiction-y and space opera-y, and I can't wait. So it's, for me, that's a big motivating factor in pushing this Kickstarter forward.
Yeah, without any doubt. And you look, you know, we talk about space opera and its tropes and the things you can do with it, how you overlay. I just love the whole concept of looking at what some of these writers are going to come up with based on their past in the 70s and what space opera can do, which is different from any of the other genres when you really get down to it, right? Because space opera is so big, so wide open space, freedom, libertarianism, interstellar cultures. You know, one of the things going through my head is a little bit of a darker slant. You know, I don't know that I want to get totally goofy with, you know, goofy 70s with it, but I want to bring in some of the 70s pieces. And I'm actually thinking of things like Columbo, right?
Yeah.
Detective Columbo in space, dealing with, you know, and for some of the other ideas have come in. So I don't know what's going to come out of that, but every time I sit there and I look at that author list and I think about the theme that you've put together, having now actually attempted to put together anthologies myself, I look at what's coming in and I look at what could be coming in, and I'm going, oh, this is going to be much fun. Oh, this is going to be fun.
I agree. I think that's one of the things that's most fun about space opera is, as you said, and many others have said as well, that it's so wide open, and I like that there aren't the limitations that are often imposed on harder science fiction, where you have to you're beholden to the laws of physics. I mean, you don't want to be ridiculous, but you can kind of do whatever you want, and you know, it makes it fun.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I like to at least be able to wave my hands properly, because you know, I'm an analog guy, and if I put stuff in analog and that doesn't completely work, I will hear about it. But yes, in something like this, it is nice to be able to say, well, I need to get this person from A to B, and I need something fun to do it with. And if I can take a 70s trope, the first thing that comes to my mind, which is of course not what I'm going to use, is like a banana seat bicycle, right? I mean, with little Schwinn that you're chugging along to, you know, a Schwinn powered space drive, you know, ram drive, ion ram drive Schwinn.
I like it. You know, I like that idea.
I know. That's a Jeschonek idea. You can go with
I would buy that story. Write it. Well, looking back at the 70s, what's one of your favorite elements of that time period that comes to mind? I mean, is there anything in particular that you look back on and you think, wow, that was really cool?
it.
Especially,
Well, I mean, for me, that's high school years. And so high school years are where you get your best science fiction, where you get your best music, where you get your best TV shows and all that other good stuff. Um, and so I often like to incorporate music into
Mhm.
what I do. And the things that I love the most are when I can write a story that is fueled by music, and I see exactly where the music has adjusted things, but when people read it, they have no idea where it came from, right? I mean, I wrote a whole space opera thing that got published in analog that was essentially a retelling of Exile on Main Street. So I may do something like that also. And so, the conceit there is I went through every single song in Exile on Main Street, which is 18 or 20 songs.
Yeah.
And every movement of the story was informed by either the song or a line in the song or three words in the song that I strung together differently. So for me,
Yeah.
I titled the story Tumble and Dice because it actually worked in context of the story too.
Mm-hmm.
But Tumble and Dice, of course, is a song that's on Exile on Main Street.
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of what is just cool about the 70s is the music.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't be surprised if I boil some of that into this also, but it will probably not be overt.
You're so right. The music of that era, there was so much there, and so many different genres and subgenres of music that were big, and that sort of had their a real flowering in that time. I mean, of course you had, everybody thinks of disco when they think of the 70s, but of course you had pop, which was huge back then and really took new forms at that time, and country rock and hard rock and metal, and it was so much.
And metal was going into glam, and there's a bunch of it was the beginning of the whole electrical nature and computerized nature of music, right? Actually, technically that started in the 60s, just barely, but in reality, the 70s are when computers came to bear, and the computers that were being used to make music were like room size, the classic NCAP 3, whatever. But yeah, if you get into it, all the synthesized stuff that was starting, and disco made such big use of, all of that is the precursor to hip hop and trip hop and rap and some of the really amazing things that are being done. I just put a post on my blog about Tash Sultana, who's a looper, a non-binary individual who performs on their own, but all of their stuff is done and stored away and brought in the way that they want them to present it, and it's just amazing, right? Without the things that were going on in the 70s, that would not be possible.
Yeah.
So it's an amazingly inventive time period, and like I said, the 60s were sharp and harsh and difficult.
Mm-hmm.
The 80s were running fast and lots of weird things going on financially and all that other good stuff. The 70s were this great big period where everyone's taking a big deep breath and figuring out what the culture is going to look like, so it's just a really interesting time period. So
yeah,
it's going to be fun. Going to be lots of fun.
The age of the Moog synthesizer, right?
Exactly. And you see that in all the science fiction that came out in that time period too.
Yeah.
Already ran through a collection of it, right?
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, it was a great time in terms of music and in terms of film and television too. I mean, sometimes we get stuck on some of the cheesier sitcom stuff and some of the drama that didn't work as well as maybe it could have and was poorly shot or whatever. but there were so many great shows in that era too. I mean, it was a real golden age of television.
Yeah, and one of the great things about the, you know, not necessarily space opera, but there was a lot of interesting science fiction going on television. If you think about what science fiction is, right? $6 Million Man is science fiction.
Oh
Star
yeah.
Trek started in the 60s, but through the 70s was going through, right?
Yep.
There were a lot of, I mean, as a kid, Ultraman, I don't know if you remember Ultraman or not, but that's definitely science fiction, right? Before it's all said and done, but it's got this weird Godzilla flair to it, right? I mean, it's, how can you get any cooler than that? You know, so I think there's just all sorts of stuff to play with, and I can't begin to thank you for bringing me into this project, because it's going to be a great amount of fun.
Thanks for jumping on board. I appreciate it, and I can't wait to read what you write, and I know it's going to be great. And everybody out there, I hope you'll jump on board right now. We've got a lot of momentum. We're at 54% funded, and I think probably by the time this airs, we'll be even further forward than that. But it's going to be great fun, and please help us to make it a reality. We're going to bring you an incredible book. You're going to love it. Oh, we've got some great rewards, including a pet disco ball, sort of like a pet rock, and a smiley face pin just for Space 1975. So those are just two of the quirkier things that we're offering. So there's a lot of fun stuff that we're doing with this Kickstarter. So I hope everybody will jump on board. Ron, thanks for joining us, and thanks for being a part of this project.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a great project, and it's been fun to chat with you. We'll have to do this more often.
Likewise, I agree. See you later, Ron.